Hey y'all, this is Penny on 15 Minutes of Fame, and our show today is about how Meta got hit with not one, but two guilty verdicts. Yet somehow their stock keeps climbing higher. So what happens when two juries in two different states decide to stop pretending everything's fine and actually hold big tech accountable? Spoiler alert, the internet has a meltdown, and Meta's stock somehow goes up. Because apparently, we live in a simulation written by a mediocre screenwriter. Two landmark verdicts, 24 hours apart, and suddenly Silicon Valley's invincibility shield has some cracks in it. Let's talk New Mexico first, because this case is absolutely unhinged. Attorney General Raul Torres didn't just file boring paperwork like a normal person. No, he went full detective mode, creating fake accounts pretending to be kids just to see what would happen. And shockingly, if you've been living under a rock made of optimism, they documented a flood of predatory behavior and sexual solicitations. Meta knew. They always know. They just decided that stopping it would be too expensive, or inconvenient, or whatever excuse passes for corporate morality these days. After 7 weeks of trial and one single day of deliberation, the jury slapped Meta with $375 million. That's thousands of violations at $5,000 each, the absolute maximum penalty. Now, before you start celebrating, let me ruin your day. Prosecutors wanted $2 billion. Meta is worth $1.5 trillion. And made $201 billion in revenue last year. This fine? It's couch cushion money. Their stock actually rose 5% after the verdict. Wall Street looked at this punishment and basically said, "That's cute." But here's where it gets interesting. The money isn't the scary part for Meta. The second phase hits in May, and that's when a judge decides whether they created a public nuisance and whether they need to fund remedial programs. We're talking court-ordered changes to how the platform actually operates. That's the part that should have Zuckerberg's lawyers stress-eating in the bathroom. Then literally the next day, California drops another bomb. This one's an individual case. A 20-year-old woman called KGN. She started using YouTube when she was 6 years old. Then Instagram at 9. Her mom testified that social media addiction literally rewired her daughter's brain, destroyed her long-term memory, made her completely unable to function without her phone. Like, she'll actually fight you if you try to take it away, which is totally normal and fine and not alarming at all. The jury said, yeah, Meta and YouTube are liable, $3 million in damages. Meta gets 70% of the blame, YouTube 30%. And here's my favorite part. Mark Zuckerberg actually testified in person, his first time giving a deposition in an actual courtroom. The stuff that came out of his mouth? Chef's kiss. He claimed kids lie about their age to use platforms. Which, sure, but whose job is it to verify that? Also, he went on this whole tangent about donating almost everything to charity and funding science, and the better Meta does, the more he can save the world. It's the billionaire philanthropist defense. I'm not hoarding wealth like a dragon. I'm a hero, actually. Meanwhile, the jury's looking at evidence that his company deliberately designed features to keep kids scrolling all day like tiny dopamine-addicted zombies. Let's talk about those design choices, because this is the legal strategy that's actually working. For years, Section 230 has been this impenetrable force field for tech companies. It says platforms aren't responsible for user content. Combined with First Amendment protections, it made suing social media companies basically impossible. But these cases aren't about content. They're about the algorithms. the addictive features, the business model that prioritizes engagement over literally everything else, including children not being exploited. New Mexico argued Meta violated consumer protection laws by lying about safety. California focused on negligent design. Neither case is trying to blame Meta for what some creep posted. They're holding Meta responsible for building a system that puts kids in danger and then lying about it. See the difference?
Building a new product? Temez Labs takes you from napkin sketch to the App Store. Trusted by Fortune 500s for quality, security, and speed. Book your free strategy session at temez.ai.
The parallels to opioid litigation are impossible to ignore. Jane Conroy, who worked on opioid cases, straight up said, "Pharmaceutical companies knew the risks, downplayed them, oversupplied, people died. Social media companies knew the risks, ignored them, prioritized profits. Kids were harmed and kids died. Same playbook." And if that comparison sticks, if courts start seeing Meta the way we see Purdue Pharma, the entire industry is in trouble. Which would be tragic for shareholders, I'm sure. Meta's defense is predictable. They say they invest heavily in safety. 40,000 people working on it. Automated detection, blah, blah, blah. Their attorney argued Meta designs apps to help people connect with friends and family, not to connect predators. Which, fine, but intent doesn't really matter when the outcome is kids getting exploited and developing mental health crises. They also blame US government restrictions on collecting children's data for making age verification harder. So it's everyone else's fault. Classic. But here's what nobody's asking. What does effective age verification even look like? Are we talking uploading IDs? Facial recognition? Because those solutions come with massive privacy problems. There's also this elephant in the room about parental responsibility that nobody wants to discuss. We're putting all accountability on the platforms, which, yes, they deserve. But are we also acknowledging that handing a 6-year-old unlimited YouTube access maybe isn't peak parenting? The California case had fascinating details. YouTube's data showed the plaintiff spent an average of 1 minute per day on YouTube Shorts. 1 minute. But the jury still found them 30% liable. That suggests they're being held accountable not for how much this kid watched, but for designing something deliberately addictive in the first place. It's like saying the casino is responsible for problem gambling, even if this specific gambler only played slots for 60 seconds. The potential for harm is baked into the design. Jury dynamics were interesting too. After 40 hours of deliberation, they landed on $3 million. Meanwhile, the New Mexico jury took 1 day. 1 day to look at evidence and say, yeah, guilty, maximum penalties. That tells you how obvious they found it. TikTok and Snap settled before trial, which was probably smart. Why risk a jury when you can write a check? But Meta and YouTube rolled the dice, and now they've got guilty verdicts on record. That matters for the 1,500 similar cases expected this year, and thousands more pending. These are bellwether trials, test cases showing what's possible. And what's possible, apparently, is winning. Matthew Bergman from the Social Media Victims Law Center represents over 1,000 plaintiffs. He said when they started 4 years ago, no one thought they'd ever get to trial. Now they're winning trials. That's a seismic shift. For families who've lost kids to suicide, exploitation, eating disorders, all the documented harms linked to social media, this is validation after years of being dismissed. But let's be real. Meta's going to appeal. This could drag on for years. $375 million isn't changing their business model. The stock went up, remember? What might force change is the cumulative effect of thousands of cases, court-ordered operational changes, and regulatory momentum. Lawmakers now have political cover. Regulators have proof courts agree there's a problem.
Oh, hey, friend. Do you like what you're hearing? Now you can have a ridiculously amazing podcast, too. Check out holler.studio to get yourself one today.
There is also an unresolved medical debate. Social media addiction isn't in the DSM, the official manual of mental disorders. Some researchers question whether addiction is even the right term. Meta definitely won't agree it exists, though they'll acknowledge problematic use. But internal Meta research admitted 1 in 3 teens experienced problematic use. 1 in 3. And they just kept optimizing for engagement anyway. The New Mexico case revealed Meta executives made statements about platform safety that the jury found misleading. That's not a policy disagreement. That's evidence of knowingly lying. Combined with undercover investigation showing predators running rampant, it paints a damning picture. What's fascinating is how quickly this happened, once it finally happened. Years of pressure, whistleblowers providing evidence, 40-plus state attorneys general filing suits. Then boom, 2 verdicts in 2 days. It feels like a dam breaking. Whether you think social media is destroying a generation or this is overblown moral panic, these verdicts represent a fundamental shift in accountability. For the first time, juries looked at the biggest tech companies and said, "You knew, you lied, you profited, now you pay." The real test is whether this creates actual change for kids using these platforms right now. Because lawsuits are backward-looking, compensating for harm already done. The question is whether Meta, YouTube, TikTok, and everyone else will actually redesign their products to be less addictive, less dangerous, less exploitative. Or whether they'll just budget for legal settlements as a cost of doing business and keep printing money off kids' mental health. What we're witnessing is big tech's tobacco moment. And just like with cigarettes, the fight's going to be long, messy, and expensive. But these verdicts prove it's a fight that can actually be won. So relax. If the plan fails, we blame capitalism. It's never not guilty. Okay, creators, that is your 15 Minutes of Fame podcast. If you like what we do here, show us some love with 5 stars and a follow. Now, go be the main character.
15 minutes of fame! 15 minutes of fame!
Grep News. Thomas.